welcome to Mystic Detectives. I am one of your hosts, Crystal Miller.
And I'm your other host, Andrea Marziano. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi, Crystal. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
That sounds
Anything?
rehearsed. That's not rehearsed, you guys.
It's not. That was actual live. Let's try
Yeah.
again.
I'll
Okay,
try
Justin,
again.
erase all that. All right, Justin, don't erase that. I have no idea. This is us being natural. Oh my gosh. So, anything exciting going on in your life right now?
No. Oh, but I'm about to put my house up for sale, my Salt Lake City house up for sale. That's exciting.
Yay.
Yeah.
That is. And the market is looking better now, I think, than it has for a while.
Tis.
That's really good news.
So,
Awesome. Well, the exciting stuff around here is that all of our fruit is getting ripe at the very same moment.
yeah.
we have plum trees. We have a cherry tree, but the cherry tree actually everything got eaten off of it by the wildlife. We think squirrels because everything was gone. And we have raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, and all the yumminess. Did I say figs? Because if not, we
Nope.
have figs as
Are,
well.
are they all wild?
No, the
Okay.
blackberries and uh, blueberries. One batch, all the blackberries are wild. The blueberries, we have one bush that is wild, and we have three little trees. Blueberry, they grow into trees here. Other places they're more bushy. Here they grow tree like,
Interesting.
and those are potted. We've got them in pots because sometimes we have to move them for protection in the wintertime.
Mm.
But they do really well. And we have some tomatoes that may actually turn red this year. I'm
Hey,
very excited. Max ate two while I was traveling recently,
ate them
and they
green?
were ripe.
Oh, they
Hmm?
were ripe? You ate them
They
ripe?
were ripe.
Oh,
No,
nice.
they were ripe. They were just cherry tomatoes, so they get
Oh,
red faster.
yeah.
So the question I have for you is, when everything is getting ripe all at the same time, what do you do?
Well, when I had a garden, because I don't right now. Doran has a garden, but I don't. Um, I used to can some of it, make a can a lot of it, make jelly, like you were saying before we started recording, or jam. I prefer jelly to jam just because I don't like seeds in my
Mm-hmm.
sandwiches, frankly.
Right.
Um, uh, and then pickle some of it. Anything that
Uh,
tastes good pickled, I like to pickle. Um,
Yes. I recently put some hard-boiled eggs in some pickle juice. I had a brine from something I had canned previously.
uh-huh.
Oh, they were so good. It was amazing.
There's
Well,
something about pickled eggs, man.
it really is true. What I'm planning on doing potentially Tuesday is canning some of the plums in a recipe that Max found that has cardamom in it,
Oh,
which I'm very
interesting.
excited about because it says the recipe said that kind of the bitterness that you can find in cardamom will actually balance out the bitterness in the plum, and there's very little sugar needed.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
I think that's pretty cool. So we'll see. We have many, many, many plums to practice with. So a
Yes,
friend of
I've
mine
had a
here
plum
is
tree
gonna
before.
friend of mine here is gonna come assist me. I know one of the we have some people who live here, some tenants, and one of them went out the other morning and saw a raccoon feasting on the plums.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but a raccoon could eat a whole lot of plums before it affects our production.
Oh, yeah,
They're
I'm sure.
prolific at best.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's what I'm looking at right now is the harvest of the season.
Wow. I just maybe remember I'm gonna look at this picture that Roderick sent me of my yard. I want to make sure he didn't get rid of my apple trees that I
Oh
paid
yeah,
for.
there you go. We have two apple trees as well. One of them isn't having very
Oh,
many apples on it so
not
far.
only are they there, they look great. Holy
Nice.
shnikes, they look great. They're so tall. They're so pretty. Okay, sorry.
Oh, she got distracted a little bit.
Yeah, I only planted them, I think, 3 years ago, and they've just, they take a while to grow up. Now they're like, they look
Real
great.
trees. Real
They're pleased.
trees.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so proud. of your trees.
that I'm selling.
So that's right. So what's your topic today, Crystal?
I thought that we would do a little conversation about Ouija boards or Ouija boards, however you want to pronounce it. I know that in the current times, it's generally called Ouija. I don't know why, but I do know that there are going to be definitely some purists who call it Ouija or oh, I can't even do it. I'm not going to try. So I am going to list off some references because I did do a lot of research because I am going to talk about the history of it. So there is some like factual stuff. So my biggest source was an article in the Smithsonian called The Strange and Mysterious History of the Ouija Board. And then I'll just list these really quickly. Also, The Limited Influence, Psychokinesis in the Philosophy of Science by S.E. Browd. The Will to Believe in Other Essays in Popular Philosophy by W. James. The Martians Have Landed, A History of Media-Driven Panics and Hoaxes by B. Radford. That's like Bradford. An Encyclopedia of Claims, Frauds, and Hoaxes of the Occult and Supernatural by J. Randy. Ugh, if you know who that is, you know why I just made that noise. The Poltergeist by W. G. Roll. The Ouija Board, A History by R. Sharp. Spirits and Talking Boards, The History and Controversy of the Ouija Board by B. Zeller. And then this one, I didn't actually use as a source, but it came up in a plagiarism checker. So I just want to give them any credit if I accidentally plagiarize them. So this is a podcast called Mountain State Mysteries, and it's the episode Murdered, Elva Zona Hester Shoe, better known as the Greenbrier Ghost. So those are
Oh, okay.
our sources today.
Great. What a great list.
Yeah, it's a long list. I apologize. So I don't know if you know anything about the origins of the Ouija board. Do you know anything about, I mean, what do you know about the Ouija board?
I don't know much about it. I know I've used it one time
Uh-huh.
only, and
Hmm.
it scared me. And the
Uh-huh.
people I was with made it super creepy. And
Uh-huh.
so it's always been sort of one of the dark arts to me.
Uh-huh.
And I do stay away from dark arts. And that's
Sure.
all I know.
Interesting. Okay. So I don't know. Have you ever seen the I think it was Milton Bradley Ouija boards that were for sale with just kids games, board games?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it actually started out as a game. It was in the late 19th century. Spiritualism was like high in America. It was all over this idea of communicating with the spirit world, and there you could say that there was a fervor. And during this fervor is when the Ouija board emerged. There were a lot of ways that spiritualism was being demonstrated or practiced or whatever. One of the ways that was popular was by knocks on the walls. So you would say A
Hmm.
and they would knock, or B, you'd have to continue to say the letters one by one until you got a knock, right? And so, like, it was tedious, it was boring, it took a long time. So
Hmm.
somebody somewhere came up with the idea to put letters on a board and use a planchette or something to point to the letters instead of waiting for that knocking with each letter. And so there
Wait,
were
was the planchette something that was around before this Ouija board? I had never heard of the word planchette with anything except for a Ouija board.
I think it was. I didn't look that up. I think it was something that was used for just regular reading or using on maps, like as a magnification tool.
Oh,
Now,
oh, that makes sense.
I could totally be wrong. That's just me imagining that. Like I said, I can certainly look
Yeah.
it up. But
No, you keep talking. I'll look it up.
okay, great. So there were these makeshift Ouija boards, just that people were using for their parties and their get-togethers and whatever. And very enterprising. I don't know if he was young. I was going to say young man, but enterprising man. um,
Hmm.
Charles Kennard just saw these homemade game boards being made, and he said to himself, "Aha! I can capitalize on this."
Ah.
And so he, with some partners, he founded the Kennard Novelty Company and started producing the first Ouija boards. So they were never called Ouija boards until they were marketed by the Kennard Novelty Company.
Oh, okay.
And did you find what a planchette is in the other world?
Yes, it looks like it was developed for readings, for automatic writing for spiritual messages.
Okay.
And so that's where it started, it looks like, to foster communication with spirits as a form of mediumship. And they were popular in seances in the Victorian era before their eventual evolution into the simpler non-writing pointing devices for Ouija boards. That's fascinating.
If you want
So
to
it
see
was
something,
1850s.
if you okay, yeah, you want to see something really interesting actually that I found. There's okay, this actually blows my mind, and I don't even have it in my notes, but spiritualism was so common, and this practice of wanting to speak with the other side, if you will, was so mainstream, frankly, that Norman Rockwell actually had a picture that was the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. I think it's the
Mhm.
Saturday Evening Post. I'm so sorry. Um, that was a man and a woman on their knees with a Ouija board between them.
Oh.
And yeah, and you'll notice I go between Ouija and Ouija. Honestly, depends on if I'm reading or talking from my head.
Mhm, mhm.
But anyway,
Gotcha.
yeah. And what
Oh,
was
I
interesting,
just looked it up. Yeah, there it is.
and what's interesting, if anybody wants to look it up, what's interesting also is that the planchette is quite large. It's as big
Mhm,
as this. It's as big as a tea saucer, and tall. It's probably an inch tall. And I thought that was really fascinating because what we see today is more of a little, it's very, slim thing that
mhm.
is
Well,
quite small.
and the one that they have in the picture here actually is similar to one that was the original because it had the 2 wheels, had a hole in the middle, and the middle is where the pencil went. So this was probably
Mm,
one of the early renditions of a planchette for a Ouija board until they made it the small thing that it is now.
I'll bet you're right. So they create this board to market it as a toy, and there's a lot of argument about where the name Ouija came from. And for those who don't know, Ouija is spelled Ouiga. It looks like it's the combination of the French word for yes, which is way. I'm going to say it wrong. I am not French by any stretch, or some people say oui, but oui, and the German letter, or sorry, a word for yes, which is ja. And so it looks like it just says French yes, German yes, or we ja. But so when it was named, Kennard said that the board named itself during a session and claimed that the word meant good luck. So to counter the idea that it was the two words put together, letters were found from the time, letters from the family and partners and stuff were found at the time, that were written at the time. They weren't found at the time, but they were written at the time that did indicate that it did name itself during a session. Although during that session, the person who was leading the session was actually wearing a pendant with a picture of a woman whose name was Ouida, which is Ouida, and who was an author and an activist, and who she admired. She was wearing her pendant, right, because she admired her. And so, it's possible it was just a simple misspelling. So, um,
And let me double check the spelling. You said O-U-G. I mean, there was a G in it? I thought there was a J in
did
it.
I say
Uh-huh.
Ouija is how you spell
Okay.
it?
That's
Did I
what I
really say
thought,
G?
but
I told you my
you
brain's not
did.
working today.
You did, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
No,
misinformed.
it is Ouija. I'm even looking at it. I don't know how I did that wrong, but thanks. So it boomed. It became very popular. It was an instant success, and there were lots and lots of reports, anecdotal reports of people having success speaking with you know, their loved ones or spirits that they wanted to reach.
Well,
There
wait,
was
though,
a
if it was started as a game, was it a game for children to reach spirits?
well, yes,
Because
it
that
was.
seems interesting.
Yes, well, families. I mean, I don't know that it was necessarily only for children, but it was certainly marketed for families, and
Oh,
and
okay.
as family friendly, I guess. I did say a children's game, but it's because came with board games in our time, in our day and age. But yeah, I would say more a family game.
Okay.
But
I'm still a little befuddled by that.
well, you think about it. Well, I can actually kind of explain that if you want. I can jump forward and we can get a little out of order. But so one of the things about the Ouija board is that it was never associated with dark arts or dark magic or evil until dun 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 it was featured in the movie Poltergeist in 1973. Don't quote me on that.
So that
Once
would
it
have been
was
most of my life that it was associated with evil.
so they
I
used
see.
they used the
Okay, good
Ouija
to
board
know,
in
because that is
Poltergeist, and
totally.
yeah, and that's when that's catapulted it into this idea of how to speak with demons and devils and evil spirits and that sort of thing.
Oh,
So
gotcha. Okay,
yeah,
thanks for
so
that.
that's
Now,
yeah,
please
you're welcome.
continue in the method you planned.
No,
I
that's
just
okay.
hadn't.
No, that's
I
okay.
had never heard of it being anything like.
Yeah, that's why it was. That's. I mean, that could explain why it was limited, marketed, family friendly. Jeez, Louise. Sorry, everybody that's listening. Having a rough brain to tongue connection today. So there was a psychologist named William James who was like, I'm hearing all these success stories. I want to look into it, right? And so he did research. He watched seances. And Ouija board sessions, whatever they were, and he proposed that unconscious muscular movements, known as the idiomotor effect, might explain the board's response. So if you have, and our listeners, if you've ever used a Ouija board, um, you if it's, I'm air quoting, working, then the planchette will move on its own. Whether okay, will move on its own to spell something out or to answer yes or no or whatever. Um, most most people use it by each user putting at least one finger on the planchette and then channeling their energy into it or whatever. And so if you've ever used the Ouija board, you may have had experiences where it was like super obvious that somebody was moving it. I
Yeah.
have.
Mhm.
And but there is also, so I don't want this to be mistaken for that, is what I'm
Mhm.
saying. KK.
Mhm.
So idiomotor effect is actually a subconscious movement of the board of your fingers, or to spell something out or whatever. And so it kind of goes back to this idea of Ouija in the necklace and the board naming itself Ouija, right? So we can give the woman who was wearing the Ouija necklace the benefit of the doubt
Mhm.
and say that this was, idiomotor movement as opposed to, fraud, I guess you could say, or trickery. Now I want to switch over into some interesting stories about the use of the Ouija board. Do you know any stories that are interesting about people using Ouija boards?
I don't. I don't. I just had the one when I was a kid and it scared me. But I've mentioned this before. We also did that light as a feather thing where we all
Uh-huh.
picked each other up. So I,
Yeah.
I was, I was just generally freaked out, and I was only like 9 or 10. So.
Yeah. We did light as a feather, stiff as a board. That always makes me
Mhm.
think of the movie The Craft. Anyway.
Mm, yep.
So one of the most famous early Ouija board users was a woman named Pearl Curran or Curran, I'm not sure. She was a St. Louis housewife, and in 1913, she claimed to have contacted the spirit of Patience Worth, a 17th century English woman. And according to Pearl, Patience dictated novels, poetry, and plays to Curran through the board. And
Oh my gosh,
what's
how time intensive.
I know, right? That's what I was there. I was literally like, God, that seems like a lot of work.
A lot of work,
But what's
man.
interesting is the books that she wrote were received with critical acclaim. They're apparently very good books. Why Pearl Curran would say somebody else wrote it when they're really good books leads me to lean more on the fact that Patience Worth had something to say and didn't get a chance to say it, right? Because it is tedious.
Yeah, because otherwise,
And again, why
yeah.
not take credit for it? Nobody has to, quote unquote, nobody has to know that you did it through a Ouija board or whatever, right? Anyway, it's just a really interesting story, and I'm super fascinated by the fact that they were very well written and critically acclaimed. So it wasn't even like it
Wow.
was, crap that she didn't want her name on, right? Like, it's just interesting.
Right.
Um,
Pseudonym or something.
it was, yeah. So of course, critics and scholars debated the authenticity of her claims, but it's still one of the most compelling stories associated with the Ouija board. Then
That's
again,
wild.
her output was prolific. So that's crazy. Another interesting claim
Mhm.
was more of a was more interesting, frankly, and it was more of a paranormal. I mean, all of this is kind of paranormal in that it focuses around contacting others, right? Spirits, angels, whatever. But this one is
Mhm.
particularly fascinating because it ended up with uh it ended up with a murder conviction. So
Oh.
yeah, so yeah. So in 1897 in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, the mysterious death of
Mhm.
Zona Hester or Heaster, I'm not sure, Shue took a supernatural turn when her mother, Mary Jane Heaster or Hester, I'm not sure, claimed Zona's spirit appeared to her in dreams. According to Mary Jane, Zona's ghost revealed that her husband, Edward Shue, had murdered her. Armed with the spectral testimony, Mary Jane convinced the authorities to exhume Zona's body, revealing signs of foul play. Edward Shue was subsequently tried and
Ooh.
convicted of her murder. The unique instance of spectral evidence used in a court of law contributed to the Ouija board's mystique and the belief that the dead could indeed communicate with the living. The Greenbrier ghost, they call that the Greenbrier ghost or the Greenbrier ghost story. And it's a unique instance of spectral evidence used in a court of law because I don't even know if you could do that today.
I wouldn't think so.
And I don't know if like ACLU or something got a hold of this, that would probably be overturned.
Yeah, I would think it
The
seems sketchy at best.
Innocence Project, yeah. Anyway,
Wow.
so like I said, oh my gosh, you guys, I lied. I'm
You
so sorry.
did.
I did.
I'm devastated.
I said that the Ouija board was premiered in Poltergeist. I'll bet people were yelling at their computers or wherever they're listening to this. It was actually in the 1973 horror film The Exorcist. My apologies.
That's what I thought, but I thought maybe I just I don't watch that kind of movie much.
I
So.
should have scrolled down. I thought I remembered. I should have scrolled down. I didn't. So it was The Exorcist.
Mhm.
And that, like I said, dramatically increased public fear and fascination with the board. It's interesting. We as humans do tend to be drawn often to I feel like you and I do it even to the more macabre or spicy things in life. You know what I mean? Like it's
What? No.
so it's like so some people run in fear, some people run in curiosity, and definitely veer
Right.
on the running curiosity
Something like that.
trail.
Yes, indeed.
And then
Um,
there was a global influence. Different cultures have their own interpretations and uses for the Ouija board. In Mexico, it's often linked to witchcraft and called La Ouija. Might be La
wow.
Ouija because of the J. I'm not sure. And in
Mhm.
the Philippines, the practice is known as spirit of the glass or spirit glass, and involves similar methods to communicate with spirits. It just these two examples highlight the board's adaptability and resonance with different various belief systems. So it's obviously transcended its American origins as a game and become a bit of a global phenomenon, right?
So, these other places that you mentioned, the Philippines and Mexico, is it based on the original Ouija board, or is it something they also developed?
Nope, it's based on the original Ouija board.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Hmm.
So, So today, the Ouija board remains a divisive tool. Modern psychological studies continue to explore the idiomotor effect, which is the unconscious movement of the planchette by users, influenced by their expectations and beliefs. These studies affirm that the board's operations not due to supernatural forces, but rather to the user's own unconscious movements. The board's allure persists despite scientific explanations, blending curiosity with fear. I don't know why I said it like that.
Well, and I feel like a lot of times we will get the experience we're expecting. And so
true.
if I go in there with fear, because I know you've said your daughter uses it and she does it for, what is her experience with it?
She just thinks it's fun. Just thinks it's fun. Yeah. Yeah. So what's interesting is that they've done like neuroimaging to see what's happening when a Ouija board planchette is moving, and even that they can't directly relate it to the idiomotor movement, but they can see the brain doing different things, and it appears that the movements are being generated by the brain unconsciously. So
wow.
but that's not anything, like that's not set in stone, that's not directly linked, that's not causation at this point, right? Or correlation or causation either. So,
either way, it's none of those.
either way. So there have been lots and lots of stories, personal accounts and experiences of people who've had or people who've used the Ouija board. We've heard of, and I'm sure there are a lot that are just urban legends. I'm trying to think of a story I've heard. I mean, I've heard this about a lot of different methodologies for contacting spirits, I guess. And that is, that you open a portal to hell, or you invite Satan or demons into your life. Somebody used the Ouija board and they were dead the next day, or somebody used the Ouija board and they went blind. Or I mean,
and you
like
you haven't seen that in your life, huh?
No, I have not. I've not seen that,
Okay.
and I've not seen it in any of my research that I did for this episode.
Yeah, but wait a minute. You're wearing glasses, Crystal. I don't really believe that. Well, it's funny. It's funny how these ideas can come up and can get generated. And when I remember as a child when I thought it was scary, I never once looked back at it. I never
Right.
have. And so was it even based on anything real? No, probably not. but
Yeah,
but it
probably
was
not.
something that embedded fear in me. So that's
Well,
kind of
and,
interesting that it can be that hardcore.
and that actually goes back to you saying you can sometimes get the experience you expect, right? Because I know I was raised in a very religious upbringing in the Mormon church, and I was raised deeply to fear Satan, and that he was in every nook and cranny just looking to get me.
Right.
And so there were many
Especially
years
after
in my life.
midnight.
Yeah, especially after midnight. But there were many years in my life where I would be downstairs in the basement and I would need to go upstairs. And as soon as I started going up the stairs, I would run because I knew Satan was behind me. Right. And
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
sad day.
I had a really traumatic experience. I don't know that I want to share it on this podcast because um it's it sucks. But let's just say that I was how do I say this? I was given a physical example of what it would be like to be in hell. I was not burned, for the record. I was not actually physically hurt, just severely emotionally damaged. Let's say
Oh,
that.
sorry. That's
So,
terrible.
yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I really believed that not only was Satan everywhere, he was after me. I mean, after me, right? Not like
Mm.
I'm gonna make you steal that cookie, but more like I'm gonna get you. And so
So the opposite of Santa's list, it was your Satan
this
list.
is by Satan,
And
right?
you were on the
Exactly.
top. Crystal was the target.
Right, right. And so was Satan in my basement? No. But because I had been taught that he's everywhere, I could feel his breath on my neck as I ran up the stairs. You know what I mean? It was like this
Wow.
visceral experience. And it's just uh, really, it's blah, blah, blah. It's amazing what our brains can and will do.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
So
And we've seen evidence of it in all kinds of things. I remember in nursing school, some of the things that people convinced themselves were true, and and they literally would die or
yeah,
something because they believed in this thing so strongly that
yeah.
their
They warned us
mind
when we were
created it.
learning. Yeah, they warned us when we were learning diseases,
Oh,
to
dude.
to
Yeah.
not even consider anything about yourself. Just
Oh, as
learn
if
about
a
the
real
disease.
person could do that. No way.
But
We
they
all came
warned
down
us,
with
right? And they
every, yeah,
told
oh,
us,
for
I know,
sure.
they told us the same stories of like people who literally like were hospitalized and like just convinced themselves that they had these horrible diseases and would pass away or would, be medicated for something that they didn't need. And it was just bizarre. But yeah, I
It
know.
never got that. It never got that for anyone in my class, but we're all like, "Oh, dengue fever? Yeah, I think I'm achy and I've never been anywhere it is, but still,
Well, and you
I
start
must
to
have
feel it,
dengue
right?
fever."
You're getting these,
Exactly.
you're like, you're like itching and bloating. Oh
Oh my
man.
gosh.
Oh, I'm scratching really
Yeah.
hard. I don't know if you hear it, but like, come on, man.
Oh,
Psychosomatic.
it's so funny.
You want to hear a funny
Anyway,
story that's unrelated, but it's related to nursing, but it's also funny. So
sure.
before I was a nurse, so for our listeners, psychosomatic means that something is happening to your body because of something in your brain, not like brain tumor thoughts because of thoughts in your brain, whether conscious or unconscious. Before I was a nurse, when I was a know-it-all, I used to tell people that everybody was pronouncing it right. What fools. Wrong, sorry, pronouncing it wrong. What fools. Because it was obviously psychosymptomatic.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome. Very close.
Oh, so
Very
yeah.
close.
So it's really funny
Oh,
to me now anytime I hear or say the word psychosomatic, just because I know what somatic means now, right? Like
right. Although
so.
symptomatic makes sense. It's a lot harder to say, but
I
that's
mean, it
funny.
does make sense, but they weren't saying it
Mhm.
wrong. I'm the idiot.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that happens. That in songs. So with not to shift this at all, but back to our topic. What else did you find about the Ouija board?
Okay, well, I found this interesting. I do not necessarily believe that we need safety tips for a Ouija board, but they exist out there, and I thought that was
Mhm.
interesting. So I do want to share with you the safety tips that I found and I'll try not to. Some of them are great. Maybe all of them are great. I don't know, but in my opinion, some of them are funny. I'll try not to be overly disrespectful because there are definitely people that would feel better about using a Ouija board with these safety uh,
Guardrails.
steps. Yeah, these steps in
Mhm.
place, guardrails in place. Exactly. Okay, so number one safety tip is set the scene. Use the Ouija board in a quiet, well lit room to help maintain focus and create a calm environment. Avoid using the board when you are feeling emotionally unstable or under the influence of alcohol or drugs. I don't think I've ever used a Ouija board not under the influence of alcohol.
I know, I was just wondering, I'd say most people do use it under the influence of one or both of those
So
things.
on that one, I will say I disagree. I think that there are,
Mm,
well, there could be some interesting experiences with some particular drugs. I don't condone drug use at all, but I'm just saying I agree. Avoid using the board when you are feeling emotionally unstable.
mhm.
Number two, gather a group. Always use the Ouija board with others, never alone.
Never.
A group setting can provide additional emotional support and ensure everyone feels safe. Number three, choose the right participants. Make sure all participants are respectful and serious about the experience. I'm totally being mocking, I'm sorry, but avoid including those who may treat it as a joke or disrupt the session. I mean, that's probably true.
Mhm.
Protective measures. Number 4, protective measures. Consider saying a prayer or setting an intention of protection before starting. Some people use protective symbols or objects such as crystals or candles to create a safe space. I'm okay with that one. I agree with that one. Start with respect. Begin the session with a polite greeting to any spirits present. Show respect and avoid asking frivolous or disrespectful questions. I also agree with that. I think we should always be respectful when we're communicating with others.
Spirit?
Spirits, yes.
Others too, yeah. Others generally, that's a good one.
Others generally, yeah. Be specific and clear. Ask clear and specific questions to avoid confusion. Be patient and give the board time to respond. Number 7, end the session properly. Always say goodbye and move the planchette to goodbye before closing the session. This is believed to formally end communication and prevent lingering spirits. I'd actually never heard this one. I'd never heard of like actually ending the session by intentionally moving the planchette to goodbye. And I thought that was interesting. I do like it as an idea of like a formal end. Like I'm saying goodbye. Like you were talking, now I'm talking, right? Like we're done here. So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I
Um,
think it kind of goes along with when I do a Reiki session, I end it formally.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's but it's a funny thought. Just as someone who also practices Reiki, I can't imagine just walking away.
Yeah, it's like,
Right?
"Bye."
All right, well, bye.
Yeah,
I'm still bye, I guess.
still saying
Whatever.
bye, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I have a yeah, it's kind of a wind down like
yeah.
thing. Yeah. Stay positive. Number 8, stay positive. Keep a positive attitude during the session. Negative energy can attract negative entities. Like attracts like. So,
Mhm.
9, don't force it. If the planchette doesn't move or you feel uncomfortable at any point, calmly end the session. Forcing it can lead to negative experiences. Number 10, aftercare. After the session, discuss the experience with your group to ensure everyone feels okay. Take time to ground yourself, which can involve simple activities like deep breathing, walking, or focusing on positive thoughts. If you want to know more about grounding, we have a whole episode on it that you are invited to listen to.
I sure do.
And then got 2 more. 11, understand the risks. Be aware that the Ouija board is a tool that can open up to the unknown. Not all experiences will be positive, and some may be unsettling. Approach it with a clear understanding of the potential risks. And I found the statement, not all experiences will be positive, and some may be unsettling. I found that actually to be well written. Well, I mean, I wrote it, but but I like that it's unsettling is probably not a positive experience, but it may not necessarily be a negative experience, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Mhm.
like that it wasn't saying like it wasn't this. I mean, where I got it from, like I said, I wrote that sentence. But I like that where I got it from, they weren't polarizing it. Like you're gonna have a good experience or a bad experience. You're gonna have a positive
Mhm.
experience or a negative experience. So there's a spectrum of what your experience may be. It may be boring, right? That's
Mhm.
not a positive experience,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a
Eh,
negative experience either, right? It's a boring experience.
there you go. And sometimes an unsettling thing might just mean that it's unsettling because maybe you were given something to address.
Right, right. And then the last number 12 is respect boundaries. If a spirit or entity makes you feel uncomfortable, end the session immediately. Your safety and well-being should always come first. And I like this because you can kind of parallel this to like a dating app. So let's say you're talking to somebody on a dating app and they start, sexting and it's too early for you. um, are you going to just continue the conversation with them, or are you going to tell them like we're done? Right now, you
Mhm.
may give a warning and say, "Don't do that. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable." But if they continue to do it, you're going probably to block them, honestly, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like
Right.
the same thing goes for spirits or entities or whatever, that you should also block them. Like if they're not being cool with you and they're making you uncomfortable and they don't stop, if you request it, then you just end it, because you like I can't believe I'm actually saying this out loud, but you don't deserve to be annoyed and and harassed by ghosts, by spirits, by entities. Like nobody deserves that. No, so just don't allow it. Just walk away.
I agree. So, um, with all of this stuff about Ouija boards, I actually don't feel hesitant anymore to use it.
Uh-huh. Good.
So this has been really good information for me.
And that's actually another thing I was going to say. We were talking a little bit about how your friends might move the planchette or whatever, whatever. But what I want to say also is it's okay to use the Ouija board as a game, right? Like if you want to be silly with each other and just spell out things on your own, go for it, right? It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be a spirit board. And like I don't feel like the tool itself, the Ouija board itself, needs even like any degree of respect other than the same kind of respect you would treat Monopoly, like don't lose the pieces, right? Like um now that being said, there could be people's personal Ouija boards that aren't the Milton Bradley game, or don't come presented as a game, that have been carved out of their grandfather's oak tree and that sort of thing. And of course there are circumstances where we can request respect for something like that, but that's more like an heirloom type thing, or a when there's deep meaning to that. I think it's very different than a literal board game.
Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. And there are people that have put a lot of effort into some of these games,
Yeah,
carve the pieces and all of that sort of thing. Not just a
right.
Ouija board, but I've seen people who have made homemade chess boards and things like that, that they have carved
Yeah,
every single thing. And
yeah.
that in itself has meaning, which actually brings a question to my mind. If we're using grandpa's carved Ouija board, I wonder if it has more spiritual connecting because it's connected to someone who has actually
Who has
passed.
passed on? Yeah, I wonder. I was thinking about that as you were thinking about that, because I was the thing that I was thinking while you were thinking about grandpa was, would would the type of wood that you carved it out of change the connection? And I imagine it would. I had an interesting
There were a lot of
experience.
woods in that sentence. I like it.
I had an interesting experience, um, that I felt sick and I needed a COVID test, and my kid had taken the swab out of this COVID test and used it for another one. So they'd used two for one
Oh,
test, so it didn't have a swab in it. So I was like, "Oh, I'll just use a Q-tip," and I looked up, can I use a Q-tip for the COVID test? And they were like, "Halt! No, thou shalt not." Can you guess why?
it's not sterile.
Nope,
Too short.
nope,
It was grandpa's.
nope. Because Q-tips are covered in cotton. Cotton is a plant and has its own DNA.
Oh,
So it would confuse the
really?
test with two sets of DNA.
Oh, well, I thought maybe it was contaminated from something else already, but that's interesting.
So
So the
that's
kind that
that's
comes into a test kit is a synthetic material then without
uh-huh.
DNA?
Uh-huh.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
Huh.
with that I thought of that from the idea of the different woods, right? They are all going to have different DNA. And I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of taking a scientific approach of it, um like I think that it stands to reason that different woods would give you different experiences. Now, vastly, wildly different experiences, probably not. Maybe, but I don't think so. But I'll bet if you were to say use a one Ouija board that was made from your grandfather's oak tree, and another that was made from, say, just
A
some
banyan
bamboo,
tree.
or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a
Or whatever.
banyan tree that
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any connection to anybody you knew. Like, would there be a difference? Okay, no, I said that wrong.
No,
Forget
I think
grandpa's
that
oak
was
tree. All
no,
right,
that's okay. It was a good I think it was a good example and it brings up things too that may have happened around the tree, traumatic
right,
events, people may have
right.
been killed or hung or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I believe that there's that energy still there. We've talked in some of our other episodes about people who have had experiences where maybe someone working with them was getting a message, a spiritual message that they had a problem with an organ that they no longer had,
Hmm.
and I believe that that can happen and does happen because there's the trauma, whether it's generational trauma or personal trauma. If
Right.
I have a device I use that does some scanning, and if it says I have a problem with my uterus, I believe it. I don't have a uterus anymore, but I know it had a lot of trauma around it
Right.
because of pain and C-sections and whatever else. And that's my own personal trauma, not even considering any generational potentials. So
Sure.
I really I find that fascinating. I don't know that we'd ever do a study about it, but it does bring some questions to mind. So that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thanks. Did you have anything else about the Ouija
Um,
board?
no, I mean, I just think it's cool, and I'm really happy that we have it. I mean, that sounds cheesy, and I really am though. Um, I think it's very cool, and I hope that you all enjoyed learning some more about it.
I did for sure. And hey, Crystal, we have a new thing that we're going to bring in either occasionally or always during our podcast. Shall we go ahead and start that real quick?
Yeah,
It's
let's
just
do
a
that.
bonus little benefit for our listeners.
Sure. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a tarot card and read it, and um, this card is for you. Whatever you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, it will reach you, we believe, at your perfect time. So,
Absolutely. And they won't always be tarot cards. Sometimes they'll be angel cards and other sorts of cards.
sure.
So, but this time it is a tarot card then?
Yeah, it's a tarot card. And we
Nice.
got a judgment. What do you know about judgment?
It's bad. I don't. Judging is bad. No, I really don't know anything about the judgment card.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a major arcana, which means that it is like more of a life path. Um, it's it's less. Uh, I can't think of the word. I want to say whimsical, but I don't think that the minor arcana are necessarily whimsical. But it's like a deep truth. It's like it's something about you, I guess is a good way to put it, in your life path.
Hmm.
And so it's calling for you to rise up and fulfill your higher potential, your higher being. And I'm not very good at tarot, actually. And to trust yourself, trust your gut is a good one. Um, and to I'm looking at it, and it's the one I have. I can't remember what the name of this tarot deck is, but the one I have is an angel
Mm-hmm.
that appears to be holding something. I'm kind of blind, so maybe. Anyway, I would say that it's calling for you that the time is now to at least take the next step to rise into your highest potential, and to trust your gut, and to trust your support network, those around you, to help um, help you rise. That's what I have
I
to say.
like it. That's a great message. I appreciate it. And it's definitely applicable in our world at this moment. And I don't
Yes.
even think if a person listened to this 12 years from now, it wouldn't still be applicable
Yeah, I'm sure
because we do get to rise to our highest potential. And it's easy to get stuck, isn't it? Where
it is.
we're going, oh, that's close enough, or I don't even know what my potential is, or any of that sort of thing. So I really enjoy it. So, dear listeners, please let us know if you like the addition of a card at some point during the episode. And if you've had any experiences with Ouija boards that you'd like to share, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yep, we would. Thanks for hanging out with us.
We'd love to hear from our listeners. To leave a comment, share a story, or ask a question, email us at listeners@mysticdetectives.com. You can also find out about our Patreon and other interesting things going on at our website, mysticdetectives.com. As always, we invite you to subscribe, share, and leave reviews to support the podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Stay curious.
And keep exploring.